If you haven't gotten your copy of Bare Naked Bravery, How to Be Creatively Courageous, then head on over to Amazon right now. It could be on its way to your house or into your device before I'm done introing this next episode. Today's episode is a first for the Bare Naked Bravery podcast. I am stoked that we have both Samatha Parker and Kathy Rasmussen with us today. It is our first episode with more than one guest at once. Things are getting super fancy over here. A couple months ago, they featured me on their Badassery podcast and also in their Badassery magazine. I wrote an article about how bravery can help a business owner build their bank account. And I believe the article was on page 52 of their April issue. So go check it out at badasserymag.com. I really just love what they're putting out into the world, and I knew they would have a lot to say on this month's topic of risk and rejection. Today, we chat a lot about what it means to say yes and to say no to something, and how when we say yes to one thing, we're saying no to other things. We talk about how risk and rejection have played a big part in the start of their new magazine and partnership and business. As always, links to all of their good stuff and social media connections are in the show notes of this episode. So let's get on into it. And hold on, but before we go to that, I want to let you know that I am on tour this summer. So if you are in the Southwest region and like if you're in Texas, Colorado, Albuquerque, and then also in the Northwest, that's where I'll be this summer. So, and if you are not in those areas and you would like me to come out and teach a workshop to your people or do a house concert in a backyard and be with your people that way, please contact me, and my publicist and I can look at the calendar and carve out some time for you guys. The Bare Naked Bravery community is top priority to me and my heart, and if you want me to come out and say hello, I would be happy to make that happen and go out of the way to make that happen. So just get in touch. You can email me by sending an email to hi@emilyannpeterson.com. If you have not purchased the Bare Naked Bravery book yet, go do it. What are you waiting for? The audiobook is awesome. One of the things I do when I am on tour and driving a lot is I listen to a lot of audiobooks. So it was important to me when I recorded or when I wrote this book to do an audiobook. And so I actually recorded and narrated the book myself. And so you get to hear me read it right to you from my mouth to your ears. Ooh, that's a little awkward, but let's get on into today's conversation. We're talking about risk and rejection with Samatha Parker and Kathy Rasmussen. You're listening to Bare Naked Bravery, a weekly podcast hosted by me, Emily Ann Peterson. As a singer-songwriter, author, teaching artist, and creative entrepreneur, I encounter some really fascinating stories. I'm on a mission to reveal the depth and width of bravery and its benefits to creatives like yourself. More than ever today, our world needs bravery, unique bravery, from everyone. This is the place where you find it. There is no script or censorship today because that's how these facets of Bare Naked Bravery are in real life. So if you're listening with little ears nearby, please know that some episodes may contain mature language and subject matter. One of the easiest ways you can share bravery with the world is to send this episode to a friend or two. Send them an email, text, or tweet, tag them in one of my Instagram posts. My handle is Emily Ann Pete, or leave us a review on iTunes. It takes seconds and can be done from your phone right now. Again, we need more bravery in the world, so let's be brave together. Are you guys ready for some Bare Naked Bravery?
We are so ready.
Absolutely. Let's do it. This is the first time we've had 3 people on the show all at once. I mean, obviously we've had more than 3 people on the show, but this is pretty cool that we get to do 3 people at once. And you'll have to pardon me because my interview skills are all about like the one-on-one intimacy, but this is going to be a fun party. So thank you for being here.
Of course, thanks for having us. And we can still be intimate as a threesome.
Oh, yes. Good. So tell us a little bit about because today we're talking about risk and rejection. So let's do a quick round the circle of like the most recent time you want to share about getting rejected.
Oh, rejection. Rejection hurts. I don't know. We get rejected a lot, really, in the whole big scheme of things, because we're constantly putting ourselves out on social media. Our whole business is digitally based and doing live videos. And so rejection, there's a lot of people who don't like us and not everyone's for us, but there's a lot of people who really freaking love us. So I feel like rejection is just consistent. And I've learned to just kind of roll with it. I have this saying, they can just drink their haterade over by the pool of loneliness and no one gives a damn. So that's my take on, rejection. I don't spend a lot of time wallowing over it or really caring anymore these days.
Mm-hmm. Well, and a lot of that's probably because how much do you have that you're risking?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Because I feel like rejection hurts the most when you're risking the most, right?
Mm-hmm. I think that is really kind of a perception issue or a mindset issue, because I remember a time, this was about, it's had to have been over a year ago, where I put my heart and soul into this course that I was building. And it was my secret method, well, not so secret, but my method of how I, help people create these great ideas. And it's really a big part of me. At least that's what I felt like it was. It was this big part of me, of how I function and how my brain works and how I create things. And I thought I was doing all the steps and all the things right. And you'd work so, you're like, this time I'm going to do it really by the book and do all the things that people tell me I'm supposed to do, and go through this launch cycle and then have no one sign up for this course that I've poured my heart and soul into and thought that this was the thing, And
you had spent how long building that again?
It was several. I had been working on it for a couple of years, but this was like the second time I launched the course. But I made a lot of improvements. I've gotten a lot of response, and people had gone through it before and known that, it's a great course, a great product. So I really thought that this was, this was going to be awesome. And it wasn't, not at all. And I think that it hit me really, really hard. It almost shut me down, like emotionally. And I just felt like the biggest loser I could ever be. And it took me a full 6 months to recover in wanting to put myself out there again, because it felt like I was such a big failure. And I think the reason it did that was because I had equated me to this program. They were equal. They were the same.
And that's a lot.
Yeah, when you're risking your whole self, that's a huge amount to risk. And so when I put that much pressure on myself and no one bought it, that was like saying that nobody liked me in my twisted little head, which is not even true at all. There's so many different factors that go into it. And just the simple fact of, not every program you sell is going to fly, which we know now, like what Samatha was saying, we fail all the time now. I'll go and do live streams and no one watches. I'm just talking to myself. And we'll, put up a program and no one will buy it. But we'll just keep going like nothing ever happened and keep doing the same thing, because it's not us up there. It's something we're passionate about and something that we do, but it's not us up there that people aren't responding to.
How can you go from that switch? Like when you've been putting your whole self on that pedestal, or your self-worth, I should say, on the pedestal, because it's kind of hard to do that for your whole self. It's spiritually impossible. But how can you make that switch?
It's really a confidence thing, and confidence is something that is practiced. It's not something that I just was born with. And so I really had to practice my confidence and just tell myself that I'm a badass. And, there's still stuff that comes along where I'm like, oh, that was really mean. There's still mean people in this world because I'm a human and I have feelings, but really it's a confidence factor. And every day I just remind myself I do mindset work every single morning. This morning I got up, I wrote in my journal, and whatever it is that I'm not feeling good about, I make sure that I focus on that and turn it into a positive. So everybody always shows up to hear what I have to say. I only attract people who have good things to say. Like, really, confidence is learned and it's a practice. It's something that you'll never get clean from. Like, you'll never have this perfect persona. There's always going to be little things that like to peek up and pop back in. So I think a lot of it just is your mindset of there's a bigger picture out there. This little thing is not going to take me down. And if you just focus on that end goal really, really hard, and you stop looking around at all the little side failures and all the times that someone didn't like you, or you were rejected, as you're calling it, immediately, obviously, I go to people who don't like me. That must be my rejection thing, my rejection factor. And if you just stop looking around and you just focus on your big goal, put your head down, do the work, in whatever area of your life it is. If it's business, just, even just being a more confident person in general, whatever it is for you, just put your head down, dude. Do the work. You've got bigger things to do.
Well, it's interesting because this is more applicable probably to business than relationship or art or anything. But when you are more concerned about your audience than you are about how you're feeling about talking to your audience, then that's the difference. To me, that's the difference between being service oriented and narcissism oriented, right? And so, but that can be a tricky switch to go from, look at me, I'm a business owner, to, oh, look at you, you need help and I have the answer. Have you seen that happen in some of your community? Because I know you have a big community of business owners.
Yeah, I think when you're listening more to your audience and you're listening to them and you're really doing it with a sense of like wanting to give and wanting to provide value and wanting to make a difference in someone else's life, then it's really easy to take. To me, it's really easy to take myself out of that. Like, it's not about me anymore. I think that was my problem. It was so much more about me before, but you can't do that as a business owner because it's not about you. It's about your audience and it's about what they need. And the more you're listening to them and you're doing, like we consider a lot of what we do kind of experimentation. And if it works, that's great because it resonates and people respond to it and come back. But if it doesn't and no one's listening, then it's like, oh, that wasn't going to work. That's our experiment isn't going to work. We got to try something different. And you get more into an experimentation mode rather than I'm putting myself into this and it's the big thing. And if I've built it, they're going to come. And if they don't, then they hate me type of rejection scenario that you're just really creating that for yourself.
Mm-hmm. And I will say that there have been moments in my career where that's the only choice.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, I have to get up on the stage. Like, that is an actual physical embodiment of me putting myself out there and putting myself on the pedestal. Because if I get booed and hissed off of the stage as a songwriter, then they literally are booing me off the stage. They literally are rejecting me. So there are going to be moments where that's the experimentation is not an option, right?
Well, don't you, as an artist though, don't you consider your audience as well?
Oh, totally.
I mean, I know that artists are creating artists from themselves, but you wouldn't go to perform in a place that the audience isn't going to respond well to you. Like, you wouldn't put yourself in that situation, right? If you sing one genre and they are expecting a different one, of course you're going to get booed off the stage, right? So I think it's kind of a similar scenario as to business. Is you still are considering your audience in that.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, if everything worked out perfectly, would you be where you are now? Like, you have to get rejected a few times, right?
Right. Yeah. And yet you still have to risk things. You can't keep going without the rejection and the risk. Like, because the other option to me is like, if I don't risk anything, if I don't risk rejection, then that means I stay right here, stagnant, not doing anything. And to me, that's also a risk as well.
To me, that's unacceptable.
Well, yeah.
I'm like, I'm like, if you want to stay stuck and lost, like you're not living in your badassery and you're not doing things that really just like catapult you to that next level. And you get to the point where you're no longer a human and you're not participating in your life. You're just going through the motions.
Totally. Because I just finished my book, I basically had put myself on this book fast from all of the books I wanted to read and listen to. I hadn't like listened to or read them because I knew I was writing my own book. And I was like, I don't want to write like a duplication of these other people's books that are really great and somewhat similar to what I'm doing. And so I'm finally letting myself like read Brene Brown's latest book. And I just finished listening to Shonda Rhimes' Year of Yes. I mean, these are all books that people have said like, oh my gosh, your book's just like so-and-so. And so now I'm finally, or you're talking about this, then you have to listen to this book or read this book. And anyways, Shonda Rhimes was talking about, she had her own definition of badassery. Have you guys listened to or read her book?
No, what's her definition?
It's amazing. I wish I had written it down, but she talks a lot about it. So you guys definitely need to read into that and possibly get her on your magazine because she's great. But she, her book, Year of Yes, is all about the difference between saying yes and no. She basically commits to an entire year of saying yes to things that terrify her. And I'm talking about this because we're talking about risk, rejection. And when I think of the option to not risk anything, not to risk that rejection, the other option is to stay stagnant and essentially to do another version of dying, basically. And it's equally risky. And when she was talking about badassery and saying yes and saying no, like whenever you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. Whenever you say no to something else, you're saying yes to other things. So how have you seen that yes-no boundary come up in the realm of badassery?
Well, we were kind of just talking about the similar topic of saying yes to opportunities, right? And a lot of times we talk ourselves out of opportunities. And, we're still taking a lot of risks over here. We do things that I'm like, whoa, they might not seem like lined up perfectly on paper. They don't fit into your spreadsheet appropriately type of thing. And we just have to say yes. So I absolutely love that. But I feel like when we say yes to one thing, all of a sudden, all these other doors are open and we're saying yes to a lot of things that are really aligned with what we want to do.
Kathy, how have you seen that happen?
I think that I like what you said about when you're saying yes to one thing, it's like you're saying no to other things and vice versa. What I think is important in that statement is making sure that those things that you are saying yes to on either side of the coin those are the things that are in alignment with where you want to be, like who you want to be as a person, who you want to be as a business owner, who you want to be as a mother or father or family person. Are those things in alignment with you? And that is another way of living your true badassery and being in touch with yourself and owning who you are and not making compromises for it. So I think I agree with Samantha, when you do say yes to more things, it opens the door for more things to come into your life as well.
How have you guys seen that happen with the magazine?
Well, even things like this, like we're doing a podcast, we're saying yes to it, right? Then somebody else will hear this podcast who comes into our community and we might say yes to them. And so it's hard to pinpoint all of it because I feel like we're just a giant snowball picking up as we go along, We started as a little snowflake, now we're a snowball. But really, like we said yes a couple of weeks ago to going to New York. That was really big for us. That was a big deal. We've said yes to starting the goddamn magazine. That was like the biggest yes, I think. And look at where that's put us now. I would not be on this podcast talking to you if we hadn't said yes to that.
How? Because I agree that there are like bunny trails or little breadcrumb trails of yeses and nos. But where, in regards to starting the magazine, was there several yeses or like a specific yes that you recall being more memorable than some of the other ones?
I sent Kathy a memo about this idea I had for a magazine, and she was like, yes, I want to do it. I was like, oh, wait. Oh, okay. We're doing this.
Yep.
So how about that's a good one?
Yeah, that was definitely a memorable one. I think another memorable yes was just this last year. Samantha and I we had a retreat, a strategic retreat, I guess, so to speak. We went to Los Angeles together and spent a few days, just kind of planning out what was the next big thing for Badassery. And during that, we decided that it was time for us to start focusing more on Badassery and less on our own businesses. Because up until that point, we'd both built our own successful online businesses. And at that exact moment in time, I decided like, okay, if we're going to do this, I'm going to do it. Right. So I called my number one client that I was basically I had 2 clients with my other business. That was enough to keep me just very busy and very, just perfectly comfortable. And I called my biggest one and I broke up with him and told him we needed to cancel our contract. It was time for me to move on to different things. And he said no. And then he said, well, let's figure this out. And we created an exit strategy for me to wind down on doing work for him. So that I could focus more on Badassery. And that was, speaking of risk, that was a huge risk because that was like, what he paid me every month to work with him is covered all my bills. I mean, that was my safety net. And to give that up to do something that wasn't set in stone and that was, had more risk involved, that was a big step. But I said yes to it. And now, like, look where we are now. We get to go do awesome things like go to New York and be on your podcast and have other people on our podcast. And it's just been I think that was one of the best decisions that I've made.
Do you recall like some of the ways that it felt to have that conversation with him?
We were in New Orleans. Yeah, we were in New Orleans when she did it. So I kind of feel like we were high vibing and maybe slightly drunk. I don't know.
Yeah, we had back-to-back trips, New Orleans first and then Los Angeles right after. So this is all over the span of like a week and a half. But I've been thinking about it for a while. So it wasn't something that just popped into my head and I made this rash decision to do. But what I had been doing was trying to justify it so that it was further out in my life. So I'm like, okay, my deadline is going to be my birthday. Like April, my birthday is going to be my deadline. I'm going to be done by my birthday. And then I'm thinking, why do I want to wait till my birthday? Like that's 6 months away. Why do I want to wait till my birthday? So I'm like, okay, well, I can do it to the end of the year. And then I get thinking like, why do I want to wait till the end of the year? Like, why can't I create new opportunities for myself now? And like, could I do it now? And that whole thought process of like, well, why not? Like, okay, why not do it now? I guess you can hear the 2 sides of my brain talking to each other, basically. Like, what's holding you back from doing it now, Kathy? Like, I don't know. What is holding me back? And if I can't answer that question to myself, then it's like the answer to me is clear. It's like, then just do it. If you can't like give yourself a legitimate reason why to wait, then don't wait.
We'll get back to the bravery at hand in a second, but I wanted to remind you that I first began having these conversations both on and off the podcast because I was curious about what bravery actually meant. If we could build it, if so, with what ingredients. And I was so curious, I turned my research and personal stories of experiences with feats of bravery into a book. That book is called Bare Naked Bravery, How to Be Creatively Courageous, and it's now available in multiple formats on Amazon right now. So go get yourself a copy of Bare Naked Bravery, How to Be Creatively Courageous, and after you read it, let me know what you think. Let me ask you this, Kathy. Have you, or where else have you seen curiosity lead your decisions with the Badassery magazine?
I think that every month we put an issue together is kind of based on curiosity. It's based on what more can we add to the conversation and what more can we bring to light and start shedding some light on. In February, Samatha organized this amazing photo shoot where she lives in southern Utah and invited 16, I'm not sure how many people, 17 people there to basically just take a photo shoot of how, just to show their natural beauty and to show that you don't need to be photoshopped or, a size 0 supermodel to be beautiful and to be confident in front of a camera and show who you truly are. And that started a huge conversation about how people are embracing their true badassery and embracing their true self and not feeling judged about it and not judging other people for doing that. So, I mean, that was a really important conversation to start. And then last month in March, we released our issue about female business owners and how it wasn't just the women that we spoke to weren't just starting businesses because it was a business and they wanted to make money. Like, no, I don't even think any of them had an MBA that I spoke to, but they wanted to start a business because they wanted to make an impact in some way, whether it be empowering women or helping foster kids or trying to help women who were at risk and needed some way to be able to support themselves and have a sustainable income source. Like there's so many various reasons why these women were starting businesses, and it was also much bigger than themselves. And I just thought that just to highlight those women, to see what they're doing, to see what kind of impact they're making on society is just inspiration to all of us. I was so excited that we got to highlight those women in our issue.
Do you, Samantha, when you see these stories come together, because I don't know how you guys divide up your partnership, like who's in charge of content or whatever.
It's a magical secret.
Cool. I'm happy to have you not share. But I do want to know, like, what is it like to be partners in Risk and Rejection? I mean, because you guys together, it's not just you, Kathy, risking your rent. It's also Samantha, and you guys have families and friends and communities that your respective decisions affect the other person's bubbles.
Yeah. Well, when Kathy decided to do that thing in New Orleans where she was like, I'm done, I suddenly took on this weird responsibility of like, well, I need to make sure we're making more money now. And I probably did it for like about 30 days where I was just a total psychopathic wreck about it. I just took on this weird ownership. And that was just, I don't know why I did it. I just felt like, oh, now I've got to make money for both of us. I went into like some sort of weird role. Kathy knows, she's laughing. Because I got really obsessive with it. And I was so worried that like Kathy was going to like be homeless or something. I was like, do you need money? I don't know what was going on. It was just the weirdest like sense of responsibility that I took on. And then finally Kathy one day was like, shut up, basically. You know, we're really good at balancing each other. But she's like, you have to stop taking ownership of it. And I was like, thank you, because it's like killing me. And we're in this together. And ever since we had that conversation and I realized like how deeply like involved emotionally I had got with like a financial tie, it all just kind of faded away. And I realized, yes, we are in this together. And it is actually really freaking cool to be an entrepreneur and have somebody that you can be like, dude, I'm stressing out. Because as entrepreneurs, yes, we do have cash flow. We make money over here in Badassery land. People ask that all this time. They're like, do you make money? I'm like, of course, you know, but it's, as an entrepreneur, the paychecks aren't guaranteed every other Friday. And so it's great to have someone to be like, hey, this is where we're at. And we're like, okay, we've got this. We can do this, instead of having to carry it all myself. And I think that's what I was doing. Is before I'd been building this online business. I built a really great business online, was making good money, but I carried all of that burden myself. And so I just kept carrying it instead of remembering like, hey, we can divide the load now. So really like I am lucky as hell that I get to have a partner that can be like, today's not a good day, but most of the time it is great days. But when you are having those shitty moments, it's really good to have someone that's there to like own it and meet you halfway. I was thinking about my relationship with Kathy last night while I was laying in bed. Just don't ask. We spend a lot of time together. And I was like, you know, Kathy's like, I'm like, is she like a best friend? Like, I was doing this weird classification thing. And I'm like, actually what she is she's really like a really good sister. You know how you have that sister that like is really good sister that like you're sick and she flies across the country, or you call like when you're happy, sad, like that really good sister. That's kind of what Kathy is. So it's like, she's a friend, but like more than a best friend, but a sister. And then we're work wives. And oh my God, who knows?
I think it's hilarious because I understand that when I decided to take that big of a risk for me, it did impact Samantha because we do, you know, share money with Badassery. We have a partnership. It's 50-50. But the only thing is I'm still responsible for my own income, right? So if I wasn't making enough money through Badassery, if that was going to be the case, then I could still figure out other ways to make money. I wasn't stuck in this like having to be solely responsible. Sam didn't suddenly become my mother. It was just part of that. So I'm glad that we worked through that, because that's the last thing I want to do is be a burden on somebody else when it should be a 50-50 partnership. So it was interesting going through that with her.
And it's interesting I don't think I've ever heard or like been able to talk with somebody who has had an equal split 50-50 partnership in business with someone else. Because one, in business school, they're always, or at least in my business school, they were always like, do not do a partnership. Do not do a partnership. Like if like there's just a general like, don't do it, because there's a lot at risk. There's a lot that usually gets blown up when it doesn't go well, or if it does go well and you have to sell off the business, then how does that get split up? There's so many questions and there's so many contingency plans to think about. And when it is evenly split, that almost makes it more risky, right?
It does. I mean, that's one thing. The first thing our lawyer said to us is like, now, the risks involved with that. We're like, yes, we know the risks involved with that. But I think that Samatha and I are really lucky because we not only do we have really good communication styles with each other, we also have really complementing strengths. So it goes down to when we are dividing up the tasks, it kind of fits into that natural division of I do the stuff that I'm good at, she does the stuff that she's good at. We are better together because we do complement each other. And if we can't do something, we outsource it. I mean, so it works really well. And we both have kind of like defined our roles, which is very important for a partnership. You have to have defined roles. But it's also that, yeah, there's some risk. It could go south. But I think Samatha and I both know about those risks, and we're willing to take them on. I think that's one thing about risks is, yeah, things might happen, but it also might be really good. There's a risk that this is going to be like totally badass, kick-ass, amazing, world dominating experience for us. And so I think that the chance is greater that that's going to happen than everything's going to go in the toilet. And I'd rather have the awesomeness happen.
Yeah, it's like, are we going to live our life like we're going to get hit by a bus tomorrow, or are we just going to live our life?
Yeah. Do you find that kind of, well, we might as well plan on the good happening rather than thinking about like the catastrophic thinking?
Yes. And I do think it's logical at a certain point to plan for things, right? Like, you should have a will, your spouse might die. Like, there's logicalness that goes into it. But I don't think you should sit around thinking that bad things are going to happen. I live my life that the world is mostly good and that people are mostly good. And I realize there's a lot of bad shit that goes on in the world, and there's a lot of bad partnerships, but there's a lot of good that goes on in the world. There is a lot of people doing kick-ass shit that more people need to see. And that's literally whenever I hear people talking about like, oh, the world these days, the millennials and all that stupid shit, I'm like, people are inherently good, And if we stop focusing on just all these negative groups, like, there's something going on over here that we can't control. It's like, just live your life that the world is mostly good and it's going to work out.
There's a section in my book all about reading shadows. And I think a lot of people get really good at reading shadows and not really good at seeing the truth behind the shadows. They just see darkness or dark spots in their life and go like, oh my gosh, it must be a scary monster, when it might be just a fluffy bunny standing in front of a lamp, like that kind of thing. So, but I'm with you. It's important to have contingency plans, and yet it's nice to have that balance between spending the majority of your energy and thought process on what you want to happen.
I really think it's important to have, I always call it a backup plan. So if you are taking care of that, you have that plan B, you have the just in case scenario covered, and you really can like forget about that, and you can focus on all the good stuff and making the good things happen and having your mindset in a high vibe instead of in a negative vibe. And it's just to put that part of your brain, that lizard brain, is to put that to sleep, basically. If you have your backup plan covered, you're like, I got this. I know if the worst case scenario happens, I'll be fine. I'm going to focus on the good stuff. So that's why it's important to have a backup plan, but it's also important to just put it back in the back of your head and put the good stuff in the forefront.
So do you have a backup plan?
Me?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I do have a backup plan. I'm not going to tell you about it. No, I'm just kidding.
Just like, do I need a backup plan?
Well, I mean, this is good. This is good stuff because who's wrote the book Getting Things Done? David Allen wrote the productivity bang up bestseller called Getting Things Done, and he swears by writing down everything that's in your head in a one messy to-do list. So not organized, just every morning sit down and think of everything you could possibly think of that could be on a to-do list and put it on a list, because you're spending energy retaining that thing and trying to remember, oh, don't forget to take out the laundry, because that definitely just came in my brain and I need to take the laundry out of the washer. But it's that piece of information was floating around in my head, and I can see how having that contingency plan or a plan B is nice, because then you can go, okay, brain, chill out. Mm-hmm. If we are risking everything or we are rejected, then we know that these are the things that are going to happen. So I'm going to ask this guy on a date, and if he rejects me, then I have a bar of chocolate and a pedicure planned. These are the things that I can have in place if I need to have them in place. And it really does help.
I remember telling Kathy a long time ago that my backup plan was I was just going to be on Craigslist looking for jobs. And she's like, stop looking on Craigslist for jobs. And I'm like, I just got to be aware of what the market's doing. She's like, no.
You can do that if the time comes. But my backup plan is I do freelance work on Upwork. And that is my go-to backup plan if I ever need to make ends meet, or I'm not going to have to live in my car. There are alternatives, but so far we've been doing great and I haven't had to worry about that. But I know that if it does come down to it, because business is risky and you're taking a risk with your livelihood, that there's that alternative. It's not when I quit my full-time job to start my own online business. That was it was so scary, but I knew that the worst case scenario was I'm going to have to get another job, and that I've done that before and it's okay. It's not going to kill me. And then you can stop worrying about it so much. That worry, that's consuming. I used to have nights where I could not sleep because I was my brain wouldn't shut off. I was just worrying about so many things. And when I finally realized that this is a technique that works, come up what's the worst case scenario? What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Okay, we'll cover that. Now you don't have to worry about it anymore. I've had much better sleep. Much better sleep.
And as an entrepreneur, I've even been there's shit I could sell. I'll just sell the TV.
Exactly. There's stuff we have to sell.
Yeah, we're not going to be living in our car and starving to death.
You're talking to someone who's pretty much living out of her car right now. So, because I'm at a family's house and doing book tour stuff. I'm landed here in Atlanta for a while. So although when the time this episode comes out, I won't be anymore. I'll be definitely on the road back again. But I think that having that contingency plan in place is really nice. I have personally benefited from those before. And I've also benefited from even, we were talking about moments of stagnancy or choosing to not risk. And I've actually benefited from those moments where I go, taking these risks and moving through these kinds of rejections is so exhausting. I need to give myself a vacation from it. And I gave myself a couple months and said, okay, you don't have to say yes to everything or say no to everything except these 4 things. Don't plan anything ahead of time. Those are really powerful moments and seasons if you need them, and really nourishing as well. So if you guys are listening to this and you're thinking, oh my gosh, risk after risk, an entire lifestyle of risk and rejection, that sounds exhausting. And it is. But I think part of being sustainable in that lifestyle is having these contingency plans in place and going at a speed that you know you can handle as well. So, final question. For somebody who is listening to this and the risk and the rejection and just generally just keep pressing on, like that terrifies them and or they feel like that's just a really heavy responsibility, what would you encourage or advise them with?
Well, I think it's going to be scary, and that's okay, and that's absolutely okay. Like I always say, fear can come in the car. It just doesn't get to drive the car, essentially, so it's okay. But I just look at it, would I rather be living that life where I was suicidal, or would I have rather risked everything and just jumped in and done this? And now I'm living, all these incredible experiences, and we're still taking so many risks every day. Yeah, we literally do live it. I love it though. I freaking love it. But I'd just say, do it. Just be scared and do it anyways. That's what it is. It's just acknowledging the fact that you're going to be scared.
Yeah. And when you do need that downtime to set those boundaries, and that's perfectly okay too. I mean, it's okay to take a little break and to take a breather. But I think that the difference is that when it's impeding your ability to live the life that you want to live, then that's when you need to stop taking breaks and start taking more risks, because that's the only way you're going to get to where you want to be, is to risk doing it.
Put on the hustle pants.
Totally. You girls, this has been so fantastic. You guys, you can check out the Badassery magazine and all the links to everything Samantha and Kathy have been talking about and their community. All of that is in the show notes for this episode. So thank you, Kathy and Samantha. This has been wonderful.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Beyond your free bravery bundle and book bonuses, which are always available at emilyannpeterson.com or barenakedbravery.com, your brave takeaway from today's show is to hop into the Bare Naked Bravery community Facebook group and tell us all about the last time that you risked rejection. Was it tricky? Did you have a contingency plan in place? Did you bolster your nerves before taking the risk? We want to know about it. We would also love to hear all about your favorite parts of today's Bare Naked Bravery with Kathy and Samantha. So you can find Samantha Parker, Kathy Rasmussen, Badassery Magazine, and myself on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and more. We're basically in all of the places that you would want us to be. So go ahead and tag us so that we can cheer you on and see what you're up to in regards to risk and rejection. So that is our show this week. Thank you so much for listening. Again, we've put all the links in the show notes for today's episode. Be sure to visit us online for all of that. Just go to barenakedbravery.com. And if you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed making it for you, then please give us a review and rate the show in your iTunes desktop app or on your podcast app on your phone. It really does help us out a lot, and you are a part of making sure that this bravery gets spread as far and wide as possible. If you are digging the music in today's episode, that's because it's brought to you by Lee Rosevere. To find out more about all the artists, musicians, and other sponsors of the show, go to barenakedbravery.com/sponsors. And I'm so looking forward to being with you next week. We have some super cool things in store for you. Until then, I have one message for you. It's the same one as always. Be yourself, be vulnerable, be imaginative, be improvisational, be brave, because the world needs more of your bare naked bravery.